Yeah, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. We have here with us our resource person, Shilpa Mudbi. She's a performing artist and she started her career with the documentary filmmaking. She's also a member of Janapada Academy. Her initiative, the Urban Folk Project, which was launched in 2017 to study Jogatis and the form of music attached to their culture. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sanjana.
Yeah, we have with us our project in charge, Ridhima Tiwari, assistant professor at IIT Dharwad, HSS department. I welcome you also, ma'am. And I
Thank you,
also
Sanjana.
request
Thank you.
Ridhima Tiwari, ma'am, to give a brief introduction about our project to the resource person.
Yeah. Hello, Shilpa. I hope it's fine if I call you
Of
Shilpa.
course.
And please feel free to also address me as Ridhima because it's really more of an informal interaction. And there are lots of background noises of babies because I'm a new mother. So
Congratulations.
it's unavoidable, the noise in the background. Uh,
Mhm.
so actually, uh, this project was basically born out of this inspiration I had after coming to Dharwad. And I am from the domain of literature. So when I came to Dharwad, I could see that there is, history and art and lots of heritage all around me. I am, of course, not from here. And then, when my travel took me a little further, I could see that there are lots of literary figures from these areas, whether it's Belgaum or Dharwad, and even the entire region of North Karnataka has history of women who have contributed, whether it's through spiritual movements. If you think of Akka Mahadevi and those women, and in more recent times, you have writers like Shashi Deshpande. So the nature of contribution is pretty diverse, but interestingly, there is very little of some kind of an organized or collective resource available on these women. What I mean by that is, for example, I see statues of Rani Chennamma of Kittur all around me. But coming from Calcutta and Delhi and Hyderabad, I had heard very little about her outside of Karnataka and North Karnataka, to be precise.
Right.
So I thought, that it is really important that these women are, studied in more detail, and even though they span a very very wide expanse of historical eras, but there is a need to, in some sense, archive and probably bring their contributions to light to a more diverse audience, if not internationally, then definitely in the country.
Right.
So, with this aim in mind, I had applied for grants here and there, and this project materialized luckily. And so here we are, trying to interview women like you, who we are hopeful will not only shed some light on some of these art forms, and so just to tell you, Shilpa, that. Ours is the only IIT where we have made performing arts compulsory for first year BTechs. So what I mean by that is, when a new BTech student joins, they have to opt either for dance or music or theater. This is just to not only, of course, you know better than me that these kind of performing arts, they help you explore aspects about yourself and the environment which you otherwise wouldn't.
Right.
Not to mention that they make you bond better with the community around, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
so with that intent in mind, ours is the only IIT which has kept these courses for students. And of course, we want to take this entire exchange between technology, science, media, community, arts very very seriously. With this background, and not to waste more of your time, if you could just exchange some ideas with us, it would be great. And of course, we would love to hear about your project.
Okay. Of course. Thank you, Ridhima. That was extensive, but also I get a very clear picture from where you'll are coming, and it's really exciting that you'll have made performing arts a compulsory thing for kids who are going to learn technology. So that's fascinating to me. But of course, I think all of us as individuals, when we look back, there is some cultural history in all our lives, all our ancestry. And it's always great to try and take a look at where we come from, because history is important so it doesn't, it repeats in itself in a positive way, and we try and leave back the bad, right? So for me, it's been a journey of trying and figuring out what my caste identity was, or what it meant to be a Dalit person, because I had no idea of what that body, or what that body politics, or what that external oppression meant to my father who went through it. And our generation, we just grew up in convent schools, and um, stayed so far away from aspects that even made us realize what caste we were. So my artistic movement also kind of, my artistic instincts also told me that I had to invest in these broken linkages and at least understand why we broke certain linkages. I'll try and, how do I explain this? So within our houses we have puja rooms, and in those puja rooms we have certain deities, and those deities represent not just our community or caste, but it's also what we aspire for. So though Lakshmi, she sees the roots in this deity called Lajja Gauri, which is basically a goddess, which is a vulva, which is basically a vagina with legs. And over time, because we did not want to stare at the vagina, we basically morphed it into a lotus. And this symbolic lotus over time landed up in a woman's hand to describe fertility. But uh, over time, when you see like today's representation of Lakshmi, she has so much gold and a pot of gold, pouring out of it. You forget about that lotus, you forget about that vagina, and you forget about fertility, which is basically what most mother goddess um, deities are about. So within my own, my, like let's say my parents' house, they have a puja room. I don't have one, but in my parents' puja room there is a Lakshmi instead of, let's say, a particular kind of folk Lakshmi, or she is generalized as a regular Lakshmi because Lakshmi belongs in the upper caste and the lower caste. But say, for example, a Matangi or Mariamma doesn't necessarily belong in an upper caste household. So the puja room itself plays a certain politics, and I think that also fascinated as to what we were leaving behind and what we were carrying forward. So though I started off looking at art forms, folk is not necessarily just art forms or cultural performative representations or ritualistic representations of what we want to do, right? It's also socially and politically how we are moving forward and what we are reacting to. So folk, then maybe the dance or the songs are a means of expressing what that cultural identity is, but it's a part of a larger tapestry. Say, for example, right now, if I sing and I have you come into a theater and give me money, it's a new kind of engagement. It's not necessarily how we engage with music in the villages. Like if I told my grandmother, you're a Janapada Gayaki, you're a folk singer, she would probably laugh because they all sang, because they all worked, because all their bodies hurt. And to overcome that exertion, or kind of get a rhythm into their work, they would sing. So the breath work within those songs also aided that work. So again, there was a physiological aspect that I started getting so attached to. Because when you look at work songs, you can hear the movement of the work in the songs. This song, that one of the songs that I put up during the lockdown, I put up 10 of my grandmother's songs. And some of these songs are sung on actions. Like there is Biso Kalin Pada, which is Chakki Peesne Wala Gana. Okay, so you have grinding stone songs, which you can hear the circular motion. ಈ ಬಾರಕತಾಂಗ್ಯರ ಕೂಡಿ ಗುರುಲಿಂಗ ಜಂಗಮಗಾಡೆ ಈ ಕಾಯ ಬಿಸಕಲ ಮಾಡಿ ಗುರುವಿನ ಪಾದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಡೆ. Now when you start breaking down the way you listen to it, when you break down to how the tune sounds, like it's circling something, it's something that is going on till a certain number of um, chakras, certain revolutions, till it comes around, it doesn't stop. And the pace of it probably would have been different each time. Like a friend who is classically trained asked me, so what is the beat of this song? The beat is that which that woman feels that day, and she shares with the other woman who's doing the activity with her. So it's that. Why are voices nasal? It's when you use your nasal chamber, you put lesser um, effort or lesser pressure on your larynx and your chest. So usually most folk timbres where women sing and it's during work when they sing, you will find this nasal timbre. And then if you look at not just the tune, but we looked at the tune, we looked at the beat, we also looked at the timbre in which they sing, the texture in which they sing. So much about how we sing represents not just what we do, but where we do it, what is the geography of that place, how we speak, how we use our voice is something that doesn't just come with listening to everybody, but it's also something that is coming from our ancestry. So, quite often, we will find people with nasal voices who don't really live in anywhere that nasal voice is required anymore. But it's something that has come down from their aunt or uncle or someone who spoke a certain way, and as a child, you picked up that timbre. So, how do there are parallel journeys that I'm making. One as an artist, understanding voice, as an actor, as a vocalist, trying to understand voice as a study of its own, and understanding how you can break down not just where they come from or why they sing this way, but collectively what are we trying to say? Collectively, what is a community saying through that voice? Not just through its lyrics and not just through the movement of the tunes, how they've drawn from it. It's also within like copyrights. As time passed, I guess it became more and more important to leave a mark on something. Folk songs don't really have a copyright. Like I won't be able to say, oh, this song is from Mudbi, so I'm not from Mudbi, so I can't sing this song. That same song will have space for you to remove Mudbi and put Timmapur and continue singing the same song. It's always like a piece of furniture that is coming to you, and you can, remove the things that came from it which make no sense to you and rearrange accordingly. And because of that freedom, also you're looking at how we look at copyrights and how we own something. What does ownership mean within music? And the way we look at it today is, even if I pick up 3 words or 4 words which fall in the same pattern, you might have some production house tell me that you have to rearrange your music, otherwise you might lose certain rights, or you might have to pay for certain rights. So even the idea of ownership is broken. So I think the study of voice and the study of folk is somewhere connected. And within that realm, there is a whole world of how we understand community identity, caste politics, how over time folk is not necessarily something that is from a certain period of time, but it's layers of time. It's like a collective dream which is breathing and is moving also with us. So we are also inserting ourselves and our time into it. So quite often when we engage with it in the view of, oh, this is folk, it is marginalized, it is coming from somewhere, we shouldn't meddle with it too much, you're also kind of going against the structure of folk music and folk knowledge systems itself. It's about you inserting and then it becoming something else and moving on. So it's also the politics of folk that I started engaging with and realizing I don't necessarily want to be an observer here. I don't want to hold on to the camera and figure out how that frame is going to look good after a point. So I stopped documenting. I was like, I need this woman to be my teacher, because if she is an archive and she's a living breathing archive, I want a part of that archive to live through me. and I will become a medium of transference to more generations to come, or I will find her students like myself who can continue going in different directions.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that is what basically I've been doing through Urban Folk Project. I'd like to hear more questions about and through these stories, right? Be it Yellama's story or be it Radhabai's story, who is Devadasi, who is performing her stories. All of these women have their own timelines kind of wrapped up within Yellama's myth. So, hence, using a myth as a tool for representation, for reclaiming, for understanding what I want to creatively see for the women of the future, that I can put into a myth, you know. So,
Yeah.
fascinating.
Beautiful to like listen to you how you became an art yourself than just capturing it.
Yeah.
So we are. I want to know about the Ellama more, ma'am, because one of your videos in YouTube, you just improvised a section of song about Taura Mani. I think to be precise,
Yeah.
where you said, I can't sing this. I don't know, my inner this will not allow me to sing this, but I want to improvise it and contemporize it so that I can, take this forward as this lyric. I
Yeah.
remember it particularly about something related to, husband, leaving husband, and all that things. Can you please elaborate about that, ma'am?
So Yalama's story is like a larger structure. So you have uh, her story changes, of course, every 20, 30 kilometers, every village sometimes it changes, every household sometimes it changes. But around the region that I've picked it up from, which is Belgaum to Bidar, let's say, in this region, you have a woman, a young woman who falls in love with a hotter, older, more intellectually, salt and pepper head man. And once she falls in love with him and she kind of forces him to get married to her, he abandons her. And from there, she picks up her life, even though it sounds like a dead end. She comes out of that. She asks Shiva for a son. She's a single mother. She tries to go on with her life. And then the son grows up one day in in his rage for different reasons in different parts of Karnataka. He kills her and then he resurrects her because of the guilt that he has. And this man is none other than Parashurama, like the quintessential macho idol figure of South of the Deccan. So he is the one who is the son of this woman. And what telling Renuka's story does is reclaim the story to be of Renuka's and not Parashuramas or Jamadatnis, who are they themselves are superstars, right? So there is this woman who got caught between the struggle of power, between dynasties, and blood, and revenge, and all of that. It is a story of a woman who wanted the best of. She wanted a fairy tale. It didn't come true. The more she tries to make better of it, it seems to crash. That's what it is. It's actually a tragedy. And you can either look at it in a very Shakespearean way and say it like a tragedy, or you can look at it in the very feminist perspective and try to reclaim it as a victory of having left these two men at the end of all of that and said, I'm tired of you, Jamadagni, go find your own pleasures in life. And Parshurama, like, seriously, you owe me big time. Now repent. And again, the myth itself is like, they're like chingaris. They finally find and go activate something else somewhere else. So when you look at Parshurama's future journey from there, he finds a guru called Dattatreya, and Dattatreya writes like a whole set of rituals for Parshurama as to how to let go that guilt and pray to the mother. So there are 16-hour long pujas and rituals that are written by Dattatreya for the quintessential warrior man. And these are these strange guys who were actually born Brahmin but then wanted to live Kshatriya lives. So they were like hardcore psychos. They went around killing without guilt. And how they did that was, through yagna, through meditation, through all of this. So within this Vedic Tantric, there'll be mentions of Dattatreya teaching Parshurama how to reclaim this mother to be on his side. So again, this is not a part of the myth that I tell, but myths itself like create, like it's a Pandora's box, like you open it and someone's telling somewhere will mention something else, and you land up somewhere else, you watch something. It's not the play anymore. You're in a realm of what this whole world is. And then it starts to open up its layers and layers of history. You could totally get lost in it. Right now I'm taking a break and doing something else altogether, but Yalama is that strong symbol. It's like this underlying tantric history which has been covered up. So I believe, and because you've asked me, and because I have my theories, and after speaking to a few academicians, the whole of the south is a Devi. Yeah, we are a Devi belt. We pray to goddesses. We have Ambavai, Mariamma, Matangi, all of these women from all over the place. They're hybrids of each other. Yeah, a lot of their histories overlap. And after which comes your Shaivism, then your Vaishnavism, then your Jainism, your Buddhism, all of these male narratives that have over time just subdued this narrative of this matrilineal, matriarchal, very strong, women driven country, or women goddess praying country for that matter. So if you see any village, you will have like a Devi temple. It might not be the biggest temple. The biggest temple still might be a Shiva temple or a Vishnu temple or a Jaina Basdi or something like that. But you will have a Devi temple somewhere, everywhere, in every village almost. Very rarely have I actually seen. Usually, if it's a rehabilitation town where a dam was supposed to be built and there's a new town, you might not see one. But go there 5 years later, you will find one. So it's one of those belts that we all, in a way, have always had female deities watching over us, like the Ur Devate. Like we'll have the Ur Habba. The Ur Habba is not for one community, but for the whole village who's praying to the woman who is looking after the village. She's again will be some representation of a fertility symbol, will be some representation of Kali, the darker side of Parvati, someone who's fierce, someone who can fight for you, who can break bones for you. She won't necessarily, and you'll kill goats for her, you'll kill buffaloes for her. Those are those are how, I mean, those are the symbols that you start recognizing over time as to what are these overlapping histories and rituals that you can identify. This is tantric, this is Vedic, this is Vaishnavite, this is Shaivite, and these are all different variations of Hinduism. So that's why when in a time like this politically where we're like Hindu Rashtra, you're like, which Hindu? Like the term itself is new, boss. Like our histories are so layered. When you start pulling, it's like a whole tapestry come apart, and obviously all that much that's left over, all that thread doesn't make any sense. It's together it made some sense. You're right. So as far as Yalama is concerned, she is one of such Shakti representations. Mother of someone really important, overcame this harsh reality that the husband or the son did not complete who she was. She had to reclaim it after all this drama happens. And so it's always fun telling her story. It's important that she represent us, because whatever's happened to her is not something that's alien, but she represents what women went through. Being thrown out of the house, having unrealistic expectations, having sons who sit on top of your heads. So
Yeah.
yeah.
True, true. Me being a native, I feel so bad that all this while all this urjate and everything was happening, there was no point where we could recognize it and say, okay, okay, wait, just not the books, just not some Western theories. We were living it, but
Yeah.
there was no, name or recognition given. So yeah, ma'am, that's great. So please, in the Elama, can you sing for us, ma'am, a few lines from Elama, any Elama song?
I don't really have my instruments with me today, but I will sing a few lines. There is, within the play, usually the person who's playing Renuka is a transgender person, and her feminine outlook or her characterization of Renuka is something that speaks so much about who the trans person wants to be and what kind of um, mother she would like to be. So there is a song that I recently sang. It's on YouTube. You can check it out. But in the play, it's basically what has happened is Parshurama has gone to the next town. He's been playing with children, and the children who are born of not superpowers. I mean, he's a super child. He's the son of Shiva, so he is smarter than everyone and wiser than everyone, and he beats everyone at his game. So one of the kids turns around and says, "Who's your father? Who are you?" And he realizes, oh wait, I don't have a father. And this is like dead end moment. So he's shocked, everyone laughs, he's humiliated, he comes home and he's screaming at his mother. And she says, who said this to you? Like, my life was perfect. I got a son from God, and now I'm living with him happily, and he loves me, I love him. And suddenly this idea of a father is in your head. Who said this? It goes like this. ಯಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ರಾಮಗೆ ಛಾಡ ಯಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ಯಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರಮ್ಮ ಧೀರ ರಾಮಗೆ ಛಾಡ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಲ್ಲದವರು ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಯಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ರಾಮಗೆ ಛಾಡ ಯಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ. Our whole nation, right? We're lovers of melodrama. And that melodrama comes within our theater, it comes within our Bollywoods, it comes into, theater, big screen, OTT spaces in different forms. But when you kind of go down to the basics, where there is just one singer with a not so great voice, but there is emotion, yeah, a woman who wants to be a mother playing Renuka, who will give birth without giving ever giving birth, right? So she's transcending. The actor itself is someone who is walking between myth and reality at that moment. So that's why those plays are 6 hour 8 hour long. Like, you almost live life through that time. You grow you grow a strand of white hair in that time. So it's in that space, songs just bloom into something else. They become experiences, like this particular song. And I did not like songs that were like, "Wah." It used to bug me. But then when I saw how catharsis on stage like that is about all of us going through that catharsis, like my teacher who taught us this song, and who I've seen her perform this piece, she would say, this particular song where Parshurama is saying, mother, I have to cut your head off because father has demanded for it. And so she is going behind him to the top of the hill to get her head chopped off by her son. So the song, she says, the song is as long as everyone cries. ನಿನ್ನ ನಾನು ನಂಬಿದೆನು ಮಗನೇ ರಾಮ, ನಿನ್ನ ನಾನು ನಂಬಿದೆನು, ನಿನ್ನ ನಾನು ನಂಬಿದೆನು ಮಗನೇ ರಾಮ, ನಿನ್ನ ನಾನು ನಂಬಿದೆನು. ದಾಸರಿಲ್ಲದ ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಹಬ್ಬಿದರೆ ನಯ್ಯ, ದಾಸರಿಲ್ಲದ ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಹಬ್ಬಿದರೆ ನಯ್ಯ, ನೀನು ನನ್ನ ಇದ್ದರೆ ವರವೇಗೆ, ನಿನ್ನ ನಾನು. And both of them are chakar going round and round. It's a small stage. Usually there are really small stages, so they'll go back and forth until everyone goes, oh my god, how is he going to kill her? They will keep doing chakars even if it takes 100 chakars. So that's the thing. It's about live audience. It's about audience that is not scared of being themselves, and how within today's times we experience proscenium theater quite normally. Like, if we are people who go to theater often to watch a play, it's quite natural. But someone who comes from a folk space, who doesn't really pay to watch theater, but it is festivals, it's weather, it's harvests that truncate life. You watch theater because we are all coming together and making it. It's not necessarily about quality. It's not necessarily about paying, going and sitting inside, being told to switch off our cell phones and shut up our mouth and then sit in the dark and wait for the actor to do their magic. Within the folk space, you will see that some mother is washing some child's bum right there because kaka happened, and then there is someone getting possessed right there, and someone's having a BD right there. And still within that space, there is something spiritual happening, but not necessarily just me and my God kind of spiritual, but this a community driven spirituality that you're attaining for some reason, like an understanding that it's okay that that child is crying, it's okay that someone's smoking in my face, it's okay, but still it's important to know this story because it is our collective catharsis that we're going to go through. That closure is what is so hard to get today, right? I mean, a whole 2 years went by. There's so many of our friends who died in COVID, and there has really been not much closure because there is nothing that we can create together as art, right? And when you create together, even if it is just breaking grain with that stick and singing, that breath changes, that mood changes, and the way you see life changes. So it's that magic that's missing from our lives, I feel. And I hope with Yalama and many more deities stories and understanding of women's rituals across Karnataka, how possession works, right? Something so simple. I can go to a rave party, just pull out my rubber band and just go berserk. But you don't have that in the rural space. You have one festival and one day and one drummer who really gets you tripping. That's when possession happens. And you let that woman trip. You let her put all that out. Let her detox. You know, get all her khunnas out. Like I've seen women who get possessed at Dattatreya Jatres. Dattatreya is literally in a cage because women will be taking their chappal and beating the god. Tera satyanas, datya. They'll be cursing the god, and you're like, wow, that's so liberating, isn't it? And I probably don't have access to that. I don't know if I can go in there and be possessed and really be genuine to that possession. And so the idea of possession itself changes. When you go to the coast, women don't even call it possession. There is a festival, there is a particular day called Siri Puja where they come out, they dress like widows, and they basically curse all the men in their life. They don't even call it possessions. Isn't that Siri Puja Martini? Like that day I do puja. So I act according to the woman in the 8th century who was the first woman to divorce a man. I'm in her spirit. I'm taking out all my khunnas on all the men in my life. What an amazing ritual. That I can't even call it an art form. It's not. It's life. It's how you're treating your breath, your lungs, your mind, your soul, what you, and not just your soul but the soul of your community, like the spirit of what's around you, reacting together as people. Like that's something, as girls we grew up, probably we had a breakup and your friend would be like, come, let's go have ice cream. That's the ritual we have. But at some point it would have been a ritual where you're pounding grain and you're cursing them, man. You're putting all that hatred you have towards that ex-lover into that grain. Yeah. And that I think is something like this world that I want to create, at least if not something that I can preach, but something that I can practice, something that I can live. If I live as a farmer, can I actually look at rituals and how women stuck together, like rituals of sisterhood, rituals of prayers, rituals of anything that brought community together? Is that something that I can practice? Is where I am right now. So I live in Gulbarga and trying to build a forest on a 2-acre farm. So that's what I'll be able to say in the the long and short of what I do and what I want to do.
Shilpa, it was fascinating listening to you. And I can go on about how a lot of this resonates with what I have been doing recently, but maybe that's for another conversation. But just to tell you something very quickly, I wrote something recently on Jatsari songs.
Mm.
which are like songs sung by women in the Bhojpuri belt
Mm.
while pounding grain.
Nice.
And these songs come from specific castes because not all women had to work
Right.
and earn their own bread.
Right.
So while these are, quote unquote folk songs, they're also songs of work and sustenance,
Right.
because women had to go out and all of that. What you speak of is extremely important, as well as, not to dilute the context and the identity of it. It actually has resonance with what women have been doing across the country in different pockets of
Right.
rural India. So it's great to connect and listen to all of this, and we could go on actually listening to you. Uh, and But very quickly, one last thing which I wanted to ask you was, so Sanjana was telling me you've been taking, or you were taking some classes in Cubbon Park.
Right.
How is it like? Of course, I have attended some jatra performances in Bengal and some in Orissa, and of course
Mhm.
Ram Leela from where I come in UP. It's very difficult to contextualize, and if I can use that bad term, sell, this kind of very very impromptu, loose kind of theater to urban audiences, which you correctly point out are used to a specific kind of, book my show kind of experiences. So
Exactly.
how has it been, trying to bring that to people who might just be strolling in Cubbon Park or are dropping by to expect something like book my show out of that kind of performance? So how has that been? If you can just briefly touch upon that.
So what happened is I wanted to document the Jogatis. So when we went and we saw their instruments, my husband and myself, we fell in love with them instantly. We're like, what is this sound? Like it's crazy sigh. And so we picked it up and we thought, okay, we're going to buy these instruments. We're going to start practicing it. The minute we got it back home, my mother-in-law was like, that sounds very loud. You cannot play it inside the house. She's like, do whatever, both of y'all and your instruments, go out. So Adi actually would just practice whenever, there was some time when his parents weren't home. But I would start going to the park in the morning and start playing it in the morning. So it wasn't really a session. It just started off as me trying to find some outside space to play these instruments so I can actually sing with them, not just figure out the technique of how to play it. So I would keep calling my teachers and clarify lyrics, and they would do it over the phone. Sometimes I would go back to Bellary, sometimes sing it with them, and then come back and continue working on it. 2 3 of my friends started joining me, and so we thought, why don't we just sing these songs and we'll teach these songs. Whoever comes, we'll just teach these songs. So that was just a format. We didn't know what we were doing is in one way I could have got it funded as some public art. Yeah, but it just organically happened that I started singing the songs. I got collecting more songs. I started using other songs that were not sung on these instruments, but common popular folk songs. We started playing on these, so whoever came could at least pick up the instrument. They already knew the song. A lot of non Kannada speakers came for the class, mainly because of the sound of these instruments. And this is true for across the world, right? We've all started music with one sheet of leather, one string, one piece of rock against another. So when you hear simple music, music itself as a concept becomes more accessible to people. When we make it complicated, that there are these many notes and then you have to learn how to read music, and then yes, of course, all of that helps you understand music in a certain way, but not everyone needs to know music to sing, right? The courage to be able to just sing. That's why bhajan is one of my favorite formats. Is you sing in order to get other people to reply and join you with the singing. So it's not so much about are we all going to sound harmonious, but the energy that we create together. So over time, it just became like this. It's like a bhajan session. We'll all sit. I'll put down two mats. We'll sit down with our instruments. Whoever wanted to learn the instruments started buying the instruments. We would go to Miraj and pick up like 20 instruments and come back and sell it to the students. And they would sit and practice, and we'd just sing songs. That was the whole format. A lot of joggers who were there for a long time and started noticing us would come and ask, what are these instruments? Did you make them in your garage? And why do they sound so old? And why do you want to sing with them? And a lot of senior members just decided to sit, like they would finish their walk and they would come and sit for the whole session. They would just engage by just watching, and they would get up and leave at the end of it. So for some of them, they became audience. Some of them would come and sit with us and try singing with us. Every once in a while there would be a school excursion, so from 5 people who had come to sing together, we'd be 50. And all small kids, and just watching kids, they don't really ask you what is the technique to play this. They'll watch you, they'll pick it up, and they're like, "Tang, tang, 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 tang," and you're like, how did he get that? So it was amazing just watching children, watching grown-ups, just older people wanting to just sit down and sing. Some of my lecturers would turn up, so we would sing them folk happy birthdays. We would land up singing. During the CAA, there were a lot of protest songs that we were singing with the same instruments. So it was just, how can Yalama also engage? If a Ram can be hijacked, a Yalama can be hijacked. Like, how do we reclaim our gods, even our myths, even? So I think within the work, the park space became like our office, workshop, daily. What do you say? Is there a dog? No, sorry. I thought there was a dog on my windowsill. But yeah, it became like an office, workshop, public art space over time. So we did that for 2 years. And it was free, of course. We were teaching songs that we took from the Jogatis, for which we didn't pay. Of course, we paid them because we were documenting something. But again, the idea of copyrights and how much would you pay. So we were like, we're not going to take money from anyone. It's only for the instruments if you wanted to buy it. But if you just wanted to come and sing, you can do it 100 days a year and no one's going to ask you for anything. So that was the format, and I really liked that format. Over time, we even put up a set together with the people who were coming regularly. Yalama and Other Stories was that. Before that, I was attempting the same story in a theatrical format, which was fun, but it was a format that did not leave place to talk about not just Yalama's story, but Manjama's story and Radhabai's story, who were also practitioners and who were living it, transgender women who were becoming Renuka again and again. So the sit down format was something that evolved from the park sessions, because I would explain the story again and again every day sometimes. So every day was a performance, which again made me ask that question, is it a performance only if I go into a theater space, get people to pay and turn up? Or is it enough to have 3 people sit and engage with you and ask questions about the story? And that's also a performance. That satiates my soul. I know it doesn't satiate my pocket, but now when you're talking about the pocket, it's a whole other story. So over time, we realized, especially after the lockdown, we wouldn't have been able to sustain doing the work that we do living in Bangalore, traveling 600 kilometers to do research. So we just moved. It just made sense to move to a place where even our artist friends didn't feel out of place. You know, they should feel like, yeah, we are going to our sister's house or daughter's house, or someone whose house is very much similar to my own. And they didn't feel like they had to figure out how to use the flush and the dressing mirror, and life was simple like it is in their homes. So that's where we are, trying to create a space where sharing becomes more natural between the older and the newer. That technology actually makes things simpler but does not overwhelm people. They should be like, it took a year to teach Ramaka how to use a video call, but the possibility that she might have students over that call over time, which might sustain her in some way, that's important. So it's not necessarily like, yeah, we will become managers, we will take all of these people, we will take them to London and we'll make them do shows for euros instead of rupees. That's great. That's one format. And that's not probably what every artist wants. Instead, become a medium of just better listening and understanding what their needs are, where they want to go with their art form. Do they want to transfer it? If they want to transfer it, what kind of students do they want? How do we return the power back to them rather than feeling like we're there for extraction?
Thanks so much, Shilpa. I mean, Like I said, it's fascinating to listen to you, and we could continue this. Hopefully, we will get another chance, and maybe if you are ever around Dharwad and Hubli,
Absolutely.
you could come over and we could continue this discussion.
I would
It's
love
been
to do a workshop actually. I mean, just if y'all have the time, I would come down for like 3 days, a 2 day, 3 day sort of workshop we could do where we just do theater and breathing and voice work, which is good for anyone and everyone. Even though not too many BTech students might take up as theater full time, but even if they do stick on to some amount of theater and some amount of performance in their lives, this is something that could help them. So
certainly, we could certainly explore such possibilities. And I have just returned from my maternity leave, so maybe I'll take some time, but I would love to have you over sometime and take this forward.
I'd
So
love that.
thank you so much for taking time for this interview. And uh, I mean, if not for the project, I don't think I would have reached out and even figured out how to reach out to people like you. And thanks to Sanjana also for arranging this interaction. And so, like I said, I hope it's fine if we use some of this interview on our website,
Right.
because and what you say about all of this also resonates with our intention to archive. Like archiving can also have its own politics and its own problematics of how you are archiving and what you are archiving.
Right.
uh, uh, so thank you for raising some of these issues, and would love to have you here sometime for a longer discussion.
I'd
Sanjana, if you can conclude, and uh, we'll exchange ideas further. Shilpa, thank you.
Thank you, Rizna.